Welcome back to the channel. There are 9 criteria for borderline personality disorder, and to be diagnosed with borderline you have to match 5 of these 9 conditions. I match 7 of them, and I match them very high. The other 2 a lot weaker. Those 2 there's birds here in the trees. Those 2 are I mean, they are present, but I wouldn't say they are in any way important to me. That's self-harm and impulsive behavior. Am I an impulsive person? No. I am a person that might dive deep into projects and passionately mess around with these projects for many years and then just abandon them again as quickly as I found them. But I don't think really that is what impulsive behavior is here. Here's more of a risk thing, you know, sleeping around, going skydiving without a parachute and things like that. Well, you know, they're talking about being less caring or conscious about the risks of things. And I am, as I consider it myself, very aware of the dangers of things. So, nope, there's no match for me there. Look at this. It's really, really pretty little pond here. Just a small one, but still very nice. And then there was the other thing, self-harm. Yeah, no, I've never attempted anything to hurt myself. I have on occasion being very, very low in my mood, depressive, suicidal in thought, but never in action. So I scored very low on those 2 things. And I think it's important to know that you can actually score quite low on some things and still match the criteria of the diagnosis. I have on the other things on the list quite high score, like fear of abandonment, the number 1 criteria, maybe. I think it's number 1. It's something I score very high on, and has caused me a lot of problem in recent times. It screwed up my relationship badly with my ex-girlfriend. It really, really created problems. And then there is, it leads to number 2 on the list, which is unstable relationships, which you can say I match that well as well. That on its own is a really bad one to describe any condition, though, because there's a lot of people who struggle with relationships without really having a condition. So it needs to be seen in the light of other conditions, like the fear of abandonment. That's a lot more typical of something major going on. Then there are the two I've just mentioned before that I don't match on: impulsive behavior and self-harm. I score low on those. And then I score very high, or I did at least at a younger age, explosive anger. Now, I very rarely get angry. I can get grumpy and so on, but really, really angry, I know for a fact that that has only happened to me like maybe 10 times in my life, my entire long life. I'm soon 50, and I never really get really angry. because I know how it feels to get really angry. It's a very, very other and strange feeling when you really lose that self-care. You really don't care what happens to you when you get that angry. I remember one time of those perhaps 10 times in my life, I completely lost it at an arrogant security guard at a train station who didn't care doing his job, and there was chaos at the train station because there was a festival, and I had, and my friends, we had tickets for the train, but we didn't get on board. It was the last train home, and this guard just stood there, smiling with a smirky face, didn't do anything to prevent people from just getting on board the train and making it impossible for us with tickets to get on board the train. I just stepped right up to him with no fear of consequences, stood, and according to my friend who was with me, I looked absolutely lethal. I was so cold and so angry. He said he was so terrified of me, that guard, as was my friend. I didn't raise my voice or anything. I just looked like I could murder. And I probably could in that time. And that is the strange thing of the explosive anger that I've, as an adult, have only experienced a couple of times. As a young boy, I remember this explosive rage a lot more. You get so angry, so you lose every connection to reality, basically. So yeah, that's an old thing on my list that I can remember going back, and as I have gotten older, it has become more and more unusual, which is a good thing, even if I sometimes wish I would get that angry with people that are unjust and cruel and whatever things wrong with everyone, and confront them, because that sense of caring nothing for yourself or anything is useful. In some cases you would have a lot of integrity and just without caring saying to people, hey asshole, that's wrong. But in reality, I'm not a person to seek conflict at all. I don't like conflict, and I'm more of a hippie than anything else. So that is also connected to the sixth thing, extreme mood swings. I read somewhere that criteria that separates bipolar condition from borderline condition is how the change of moods happen. Borderline people, we shift mood really fast, really fast and extreme. We can go from happy to angry to happy to sad, all in the course of an hour. It is it is sometimes blissful knowing that if I fall down into a pit of despair, I can easily climb out of it very fast again. It is usually nothing that lasts long, but it is chaotic for sure for friends, family and loved ones, especially loved ones. Having this extreme mood swings is connected to unstable relationships. It is really not easy being a partner to someone as myself, especially if you are the opposite, if you're a very slow person emotionally, that change very slowly. This is a handful for sure. Unclear self-image. That's the 7th criteria. Seeking. I would consider it you're a seeker that tries to find your way in life all the time. I've always been certain about some things, so that is a criteria that I'm not very strong in. I think I have a decent self-image, but there are cases where I most certainly don't know who I am and so on. So yeah, I'm not very strong on that, but it sure is present. What's the other ones? I'm trying to remember. Feeling of emptiness. Yeah, that's right. Feeling of emptiness. When I'm depressive, that is a very well way to put it. I feel very empty of everything. It's a strange feeling of feeling hopelessness. You feel sad, sure, but I can still laugh and enjoy things, but there's an empty feeling of something. It's hard to put the finger on this thing, but yep, most certainly present when you are depressive, which I am from time to time. This change, of course. And then there's the last one. Feeling out of touch with reality sometimes. This one is a bit difficult to explain, but I can, when I'm really stressed out, I mean really stressed out, I get a feeling which I initially thought was panic attack of some sort. And it probably is, it probably can be described as a panic attack, but everything in that moment feels very unreal. It feels like you're an out of body experience, like I'm watching myself in a basically moronic, catatonic stage, just not really understanding what's happening. I lose control, and there's really no feeling there. It's just a very strange sensation. That's how I like to put it. It's not very often this has happened, but it has happened, so it's one of my weaker criteria for sure. But present, absolutely present. When I look back at the points I said I dismissed, like self-harm and impulsive behavior, sure, there are things where I don't really care. I mean, I've had weight problems all my life, but I can never really connect that to intentionally want to harm myself. It's been more that I really don't care, and I like good food. I'm a gourmand. I love cooking. I love the good things in life. I love the hedonistic things, and I think this criteria suffers from what many things in psychology suffers from, and that is they are infected with values rather than science. Values where it's more of a thing, societal thing, that this is normal, this is not. You should do this or otherwise you're dysfunctional. And this is highly influenced by old, like Christian, Lutheran standards and moral. Of course there are. I mean, psychology is full of this. I remember reading this. It's like I wouldn't call it a meme. It's older than that. It's a screenshot from a psychology quiz or something. Students of psychology taking an exam, and they are supposed to diagnose based on the description in the paper, in the question. And one of the questions is basically describing a very introverted person that rather than hang around with friends, go home, watch TV, play video games, and don't socialize. But there were no, it was a multiple choice exam. There were no choice where you could write or choose and pick. This is a normal thing. No, there were several things of where this was. You could pick from. I'm rambling now. I can't remember what I'm supposed to say. You could pick things like antisocial behavior and basically severe depression and things like that. And the student who took the photo of this exam and posted it on the internet, he wrote on the exam his own choice, his own pick. Where you can clearly tell this student got really pissed off by this, and he wrote, "Fuck you, this sounds perfectly normal to me." Which it does. Of course it does. It doesn't mean anything that you don't want to go and socialize. I mean, this is clearly a value-based thing where someone has decided that if you don't want to socialize with people, then there must be something wrong with you. As a fellow introvert, I've experienced this several times in life. In school I did this also. I had this teacher that discussed my absence in school and asked, "Well, what do you know what he does on his free time?" And she continued to ask the class, and her perspective was the fact that I didn't hang with a lot of my classmates. I rather sat home and played on the computer, the good old Amiga 500, rather than hang around at the small town kiosk that my friends, classmates did. That meant something was wrong with me, of course. One of my mates, he mentioned this to me, otherwise I wouldn't find out. I mean, she talked about this in class when I wasn't there. And that was just an opinion, man. It wasn't an actual diagnose. I wasn't feeling unhappy. For every part of me, preferred sitting at home playing with the computer rather than hanging at the kiosk just talking with a bunch of idiots that were there. And that's it. And I mean, that's the thing about psychology. It's full of those strange things. I think it's been better over the course of time, but I think it's everywhere in it. And borderline is probably suffering from a lot of things that will change in the future. The perspective on what's normal and not, that might change. I mean, there are some things about getting a diagnosis of any kind that's really not very nice. It's that strange label of identity you get, where you simultaneously get new information that helps you understand yourself, and that's great. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's great. But you also get a whole box of excuses on your behavior you can use when anything is difficult, and you get a new identity, which I'm not sure is always good. Anyways, I wanted to describe my thoughts on my diagnosis of having borderline personality disorder. Just a brief of what it is and what I can identify having and not having. And yeah, it's complicated for sure. It's not like when you have the flu, you can take a test and just, well, I don't know if you can do that with the flu actually, but let's say you have in any other condition, you can take a test and there are markers and samples in your blood, virus, antibodies, that shows that, yep, he's got the dumb. You can see it on the blood sample for sure. That is without a doubt the thing. Hey, it's a little froggy. Hello, froggy. I don't know if I can film it. Yeah, there it goes. Yeah, well, I guess that's it for the tonight. And remember, if I'm going to use any wise words, that no matter how much a diagnose of any kind is, no matter how much help you feel from it, always remember to never forget that you are more than your condition. And conditions, especially those within psychology, they are not really, really good hardcore science. They are still both always in shift and change, and they're always a bit contaminated with values of some sorts. And yeah, your door of identifying yourself should always be open for new and other possibilities, of course. That what feels true, like the truth today, is in many ways just a amalgamation of ideas that is described into something that is described as a condition. That's psychology, and I'm not a moron. I'm not a Scientologist that's anti-psychology. That's not it. I'm just honestly describing the simple fact that psychology as science still leaves some things for improvement, to say the least. Look at that sunset. It is really, really nice. They are threatening with bad weather in the following days, so I don't know if I can do any movies, but we'll see. Take care, folks.